Right. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm Sarah Leet. I'm one of the owners of Lawrence Dean Recruitment. We're an agency based in Stevenage. We recruit throughout Hertfordshire for temporary and permanent roles, just for those of you that don't know us. We work within business support, marketing, HR, finance, customer service and sales. Really keen to partner with Steve today on this topic. I think the success of any business really comes down to the leadership and the positive effect leadership can have on teams and driving the business forward. So it's going to be a really interesting and popular session. The session today will run for about an hour. If I can ask, as we go, Steve's got a number of things to go through with you today, and we're going to go through questions at the end. If I could ask, if you've got any questions, just to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom, and then I'll collate those and go through them with you and Steve at the relevant point. After today, I'm going to send you an email that's got an ebook just with a bit more information and material on bits we haven't covered. And also Steve has kindly offered to do a quick strategy session with anyone that's interested, a free one, over a virtual coffee. So I'll send across details if that's something you're interested in following up with. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Steve, who's going to run this morning's session. So over to you, Steve.
Super, lovely. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks very much. Let me just get onto my screen while you're still there. Get onto my slides. Hopefully you can see that, Sarah, and perhaps have a thumbs up or say a quick yes.
Yeah, all fine, Steve. All fine.
Yeah, brilliant. Lovely job. Lovely job. Thank you. So yeah, very warm welcome to everyone. Thanks very much again, Sarah and Lawrence Dean, and probably thank you, Sophie. So Sophie, as one of your employees there, I did speak at a networking event, and she saw me and thought I was good enough to invite along for this session. So thanks very much, Sophie. So let's get started. As I say, we're going to talk about kind of quite general topics to start with, but if you do need any more detail, or if you've got any specific problems, either pop them into the question box and we'll deal with them at the end, or I'm very happy to do the free sort of virtual coffee session over Zoom to follow up on the session from there. So let's get moving. So I've got my first bit here is move onto the agenda. So what we're going to be looking at really is looking at leadership really for performance and success of your team and therefore the business. So the business should be run by the team, and you should be setting the processes and systems up in place ready for your team to run that business, and then that will lead on for you as the leader. And we want to be looking at having an energized and engaged culture, and that will certainly create a better environment for your team members. And ultimately, really, we want winning teams, and it's all about results. So hopefully we can give you some tools and strategies you can take away with you this morning and actually put into practice and into your businesses, which is my aim this morning. Now's a great time to be a leader, and I've kind of spun this in my head really as I like the song, if you can remember, it's a Billy Ocean song, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I certainly think that's sort of applicable today, really, that it is tough times for everyone out there. Some businesses are doing really well, some businesses are doing okay, and some businesses are really struggling. So it's a great time to be a leader if you've got that right mindset, really. And as I say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So we want to be stepping up as tough guys and boys and girls to deal with this virus that we've got at the moment. So potentially, perhaps this was, I thought I'd share this with you really. This was perhaps your thoughts. First of all, probably shock. So going back into what seems like an age ago now, into sort of perhaps early March, the virus was over in China, and people were perhaps thinking, oh, it's not going to come to, it won't possibly come to the UK. So we're perhaps all very shocked that it was. We're in a bit of denial that maybe that it probably wasn't going to affect us the way it affected every other country that it was going through. And probably that then moved into that kind of frustration and anger period where it's kind of like, well, why is this happening to us? And then that may have slipped down into that depression stage. And then ultimately, as things carry on, there's an acceptance to move forward. And we're probably up now in this problem solving area up on the top right hand corner of the slide. So we're in this sort of problem solving, looking to move forward. And it's really key that we really focus on what we can control rather than the things that we can't control. I have this discussion on a regular basis with my clients and any potential clients. Really focus on what you can do rather than what you can't do. So if you're watching the news from dawn till dusk, you're probably going to have a bad in a bad mental state, really. So focus on what you can do. And we've got a great slide that we use all the time. This is a line, and it's a line of choice. So what we're looking to do, you can choose in the morning or any given part in the day. So it's your choice to be whether you want to be below that line in your mindset. So are you looking to make blame other people, make excuses, and perhaps be in denial of the fact that you are doing those things, which is probably the worst trait of all. So it'd be very easy to start blaming Brexit, blaming the coronavirus, blaming the bus, blaming whatever problem there is. Are you looking to blame other folk? And the other side there is excuses. So are you looking to make excuses? A great excuse is always, oh yeah, I ran out of time. Well, that's a pretty poor excuse, really. Or traffic, you were late to a meeting because you thought there was too much traffic on the roads, and they're kind of just excuses, really. So we really want to be above the line, and we are responsible for our own actions. So as human beings, we're responsible. We're not like geese that fly south in the winter when it gets cold. We're not like salmon that are swimming upstream to spawn or get to where they spawn. We are responsible for our own actions, and we're very much accountable. And I think the difference between being responsible and accountable, the account bit actually puts a number on that, so on that area, really. So you are accountable to being held to account. So put a number on there. How many times are you going to do such and such? When's the time frame that it'll be done by? And then ultimately up on the top there, you're looking at ownership. So we're looking at taking ownership for whatever task or whatever thing it is in our lives. So certainly if you're looking at this above and below the line, usually below the line will be reasons why things haven't happened. So these are reasons, and above the line we're looking at results. So generally you can have results or reasons why something's not happened. So really we want to be up in this top above the line with powered, energized people that are forward thinking. The glass is half full, it's not half empty. They're the kind of people that we want to be spending our time with, really, for sure. We don't want to be looking at hanging around with people that are going to drain and suck our energy away. So hopefully that makes sense. That we want to be looking at to be with the positive people rather than the negative people. And I'm sure you know a good selection of both in your lives and businesses. So just as an aside, have a little think. So if you just have a thought, and I don't need to know any answers, I'm just wanting to just perhaps jot down on a piece of paper if you were to say so far, we're in Tuesday morning. So perhaps if we said yesterday and today, how much of ownership have you been taking for anything that you've been given or tasked or anything that springs to mind? So are you a 10? So you're on top of the ownership chart there, or 5 would probably be the line, and then 0 or 1 would be down the bottom there at denial. So just have a little think about where you would be on the line of choice, and there's no right or wrong. Just give yourself a little mark out of 10, just for a quick second. I'll just let you fill that in. So no need to share. Cool. And again, be aware of where you are on the line of choice. Certainly I'm no saint, so there will be times when I'm blaming and making excuses, but I'm aware of when I'm doing it. So it's certainly something that you can do and then get back above that line. It's something we certainly use in my family, my 3 daughters, my wife. It'll be anyone's a bit negative, it'll be, well, that's a bit below the line. So it's just something that we embrace quite a lot in our family, and certainly in our action culture. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's a mindset slide. So we're going to focus on what we can do rather than what we can't do. Where are the majority of your team working from at the moment? So are they in your offices? Are they remotely from home, or a mixture? Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you very much. And the result of that really at the moment is remotely from home is the winner, 65%, and then a mixture of 35%. So actually, there's not many people at the moment working back from their offices, which is interesting. Super. So let me just stop that, come out of that poll and move on. So thanks very much for your participation. So it's a 65-35 split. So virtual leadership really should be, location should be secondary and leadership should be primary. So we're looking at talking about leadership first. So it's first and foremost about leadership, and these timeless principles don't change. So we've got four little questions to think on again. I'm not looking for you to share answers at this stage, but have a thought, have a think on, how do we know people are really working? So at the moment, when the vast majority of people aren't in the office, so how do we know, how do you know that your people are really working? And are people getting enough social interaction? And that will be dependent on them, for sure. And number 3 to ask is, are we getting good feedback when we need to consider options? So are you getting feedback from your team members? And can we be as effective as when we were co-located? I think probably the answer to that one is certainly yes. But please give some thought to those 4 questions and we'll move on. So leading remotely requires you to lead differently. So we're going to be leading differently for sure. And there's 2 main areas that are going to be major repercussions really. So we've got the method of communication that you need to use. So certainly we're going to be looking at what are you moving across to Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever, Teams is very popular. What communication are you using? Are you using the phone? Are you text messaging, FaceTiming people? We've got so many different ways of communicating now. It's amazing, really, the choice that we've got. So there's that communication you need to be aware, and you need to be working within the communication method that your team members are going to be enjoying the most. And then the notion of perhaps the leader's isolation isn't emotional now; it's perhaps physical as well. Because certainly if you're in a separate location, you may well feel as the leader both isolated as the leader, both in physical terms and emotionally as well. Almost like a footballing analogy, a player has been promoted to be the manager, and all of a sudden now the people that were his buddies and his teammates are now the people that he's in charge of. Or she's in charge of. So that it's that definite isolation, which is probably more true. So the act of leadership though hasn't changed. So remember, you can just lead, but make sure you're leading in a slightly different way. So with a slightly different set of tools. So let's look in to see if we can get some tools for you to be able to use. So working remotely changes the personal dynamics really. So communication, for obvious reasons, unless we're on the Zoom or Teams, we will lose that face-to-face contact. So we don't get any of those non-verbal clues that we get when we're talking to people face-to-face, which makes things very difficult. And certainly for me sitting here, I'm just talking to my laptop screen, which is difficult compared to actually talking to people face-to-face in real-life seminars, which I used to do. So, but you just got to get used to it. So you need to ensure that your message as a leader is clearly understood. So you need to get that message out there so that it's understood, and find out ways to receive clues from your audience, really, that they are listening. So again, we're looking at polls, we're looking at answering questions, we're looking at things that are going into the chat box and hands going up in certain different areas, and really getting to know what that your feedback and your message is getting over there across to the team members that you're talking to. So really, we're looking at being visible, really. So you need to be seen. So you need to be seen, and you also need to see the information that's being gathered. So can you see what's going on in your organization? So how visible are you? And are you seen by others in your team? So we're looking at how can we best stay in touch. So again, bear in mind which format it is. I've got clients that I work with, and for some guys it's definitely an email. Some ladies, it's definitely a phone call. Some people it's a text message or it's a WhatsApp. It's just getting to know how you're going to be communicating and how are you seen or being seen. So they're there. So they're there for you to be dealing with, really. So be aware of the impressions that you make. So make sure you're looking at making a good impression. So how visible are you, and what are your team seeing of you? So we'll pop in this as a poll. So let's see if I can get this moving. Hopefully you can see that. So how visible do you think you are to your team? So really visible most of the time, or not very? And again, please bear in mind the polls are anonymous. So there's no, we can't see who's voting and who's saying what. So yeah, feel free to be as honest as you can. It's just moving around a little bit. Visible most of the time seems to be the winner. So we've got 65% visible most of the time, 24% really visible. So well done, you guys. And then 12% not very visible. So thanks for being so honest. So let's move on. Brilliant. Thanks for that. Now then, hopefully you would have remembered, or some of you are of an age to remember this sketch, the Two Ronnies sketch. It's a famous sketch. I thought I kind of got dared by my coach to include this slide in. It's usually known as the Four Candles or Fork Handles sketch, where they make a great play on words. Well, actually, they do mention 3 O's. So it's 3 Ho's or 3 O's. So I thought, oh, there's a perfect opportunity to include one of the best sketches ever. I'll include it, and hopefully it's brought a little smile to some other people other than my face. So it certainly brings a smile to my face when I think about it. So the 3 O's. So they're not Ho's, they're 3 O's. So really we're looking at outcomes. So reaching a desired outcome for every meeting. So have meetings, and this is general leadership, isn't it, really, on this one? Have a meeting, but what's the outcome of the meeting? Who's going to be doing what? Why are we here? What's the process that we're going through? So a lot of people have a meeting for a meeting's sake, and it's like, well, gee whiz, that it just ruins everyone's time, wastes everyone's time, and it's just not very good management and leadership. So have an outcome for all your meetings. Think about others. So lead with engagement and inclusion. So that really means, get some engagement with your team. Ask them questions. Ask them. I know my previous best boss really would always ask, well, what do you think about this such and such promotion, or what do you think about this, Steve? He didn't always take my thoughts on board, but I always felt included and engaged with the management structure there. Certainly once that guy left, Graham, he left, and we had a new boss, and I completely felt the opposite to that. So complete lack of inclusion and disengagement, and I was certainly not a happier worker there for sure once that leadership style changed. So think about others in your team, get them engaged, keep them focused. And then ourselves is the other O, the third O. So make sure we're aware of what we believe in and our assumptions, and we can address any trust issues that we have with any of our team. So we're looking at certainly looking at who can we trust and who can't we trust. So they're the sort of areas that we're looking at on those 3 O's. So the 3O model, we're looking at, again, outcomes, others, so your team members, and yourself as a leader and manager. Hopefully that's clear. So seek feedback. So we want to get some feedback really to help, and that will certainly help in the trust scenario really. So we're looking at start with existing evidence. So you want Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, emails, notes, however you want to communicate with your team. Identify people you trust. So develop a team of a group of advisors. So we've got those there. Ask open questions. So be open and honest and not presumptive. And have these conversations as richly as you possibly can, whilst being remote perhaps, but be patient. So you want to be patient, give people time to come up with their responses, and have the conversations, allow for preparation. So if you're going to have a meeting, allow people to prepare for that meeting and perhaps jot down what they will want to bring to the meeting. So it's bringing that preparation there. And that's just being good best practice ideas really to get that feedback to serve your team the best. Now, talking of the feedback side of things there really, so we're looking at testing and measuring that. A great little tool here is if you can work on the acronym LION. So it's LION. So for having a meeting, there's a sort of structure for format of a meeting. The LION there could be, so the L would stand for last week. So if you did the meeting, we're having a meeting of all the people, your direct responses or direct reports, the L would be last week. So on Monday morning, what happened last week? And then the I would be issues. What issues happened last week? What was it that we came up against? And then O would be opportunities. So again, what opportunities are there? I work with a local gardening business, and we're always looking at that to get into their girls. What is it that we're looking for? Don't just worry about getting the grass cut, doing the weeding, planting new plants. Do they need a compost bin? Have they got their fences painted? Do they need trees cutting down? Lots of things, opportunities that are going to get us more business really. So what are the opportunities? And then the N would be next week, or in this case, if we're having the meeting on a Monday, would be this week. So it does chop and change a little bit, the N and certainly the N and the L at the start, depending on when you're having the meeting. But hopefully it's clear that the issues and opportunities are the key bits there for that line structure. So hopefully you can get that, you found that useful. So building trust doesn't happen by accident. So what we want to do is build trust, and we will need to work harder when we're working virtually, which most of us are. So we've got three components there really for high levels of trust to exist. So the common purpose. So do you and your team have a common purpose? So that common purpose really boils down to perhaps the vision. So where is the business heading to? So where is that business going? What is happening to it in the future? So what is your common purpose? So people need to know that common purpose and have a meaningful and worthwhile tasks that are moving towards that common purpose. So certainly that's a key element. Competence, number 2 there. So do you believe that in your people really? So have they competent? Are they competent? Have they got the skills? Have you trained them to give them the skills? So again, that might be down to you as a leader and a manager, and work out what are the rules of the game really. So we're looking at what kind of rules are we working to, and how will we measure what key performance indicators are being measured so that we are doing a good job. So what ask yourself, well, when you go into work, metaphorically in this case, what is it that's giving me what outcomes, what things need to happen for me to have had a good day at work or a bad day at work? So get some key performance indicators in there for that level of competence, and that will build the trust, and you'll gradually get to know who you can trust and who you can't trust. And certainly that leads us on nicely to number 3 there, which is motives. And motives really, I think, is kind of attitude really, and it goes back to that above and below the line. A lot of people have got a can-do attitude, and they will go the extra mile. So what is it in your culture as a business? What's your culture? What are your values? How are you motivating your team members so that they are with that right attitude? And certainly something that you need to be working on really. So head for that vision. Are people up to the job? So have they got the skill, and have they got the attitude and the values that they can work to really? So that certainly is going to be an area that we're going to be looking at, and that will certainly help you build a better leadership team. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So moving to poll number 3 and share the results. Really, we've got trustworthy most of the time, 73%, and very trustworthy, 27%. And interestingly, not very trustworthy, 0. So that's great news. So thanks very much for sharing that. Really, there's some good teams out there. It's great news. Great to hear. Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for your participation. Now then, next point, rule number 8. So leading successfully requires achieving goals of many types. So goals should be organizational outcomes. So there can be some organizational goals. So have clear targets, frequent discussions with the team. You could have team outcomes. So the bigger the company is, the more likely there are to be broken down into different teams. And certainly we often talk about in business, you've got the management team. So you've got your MD who sits at the top of the business, or joint MDs in the case of Lawrence Dean. And then we've got who's in charge of marketing, who's in charge of the sales department, who's in charge of the operations department, who's in charge of finance. So they would be we'll be talking about organizational goals, but then also looking at team goals. So what's the marketing goals that we're looking at against what are the sales goals or the operation goals and outcomes that we're looking to achieve? And then individually, each individual slots into somewhere within that organization chart. So if you're in the marketing department, you'll have your own private or personal individual outcomes that you're looking to achieve. So there will be things that you're looking at achieving. So have those. And I always like to talk about having SMART goals, but having SMART-y goals. So the SMART-y, let me explain. So I want to be focusing on our goals. So SMART, I'm sure everyone's pretty aware of specific, measurable, achievable, results-orientated and time-bound goals. But we like to add interesting and exciting. So that's where the SMART-y comes into it. So we're looking at goals that are interesting and are exciting. So things that are making you want to get out of bed in the morning. Certainly, I did some work with. I was doing some work with one of my clients a couple of years back now, actually, and he said, "Well," I said, "What's your goal then for this year?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I want to be more tidy." Tidy. I said, "What? That's your goal, to be more tidy? Have a tidier office?" I said, "Well, that's not very exciting. That's not very interesting." And we thought about it and discussed it for a little while. And in the end, he came up with his personal goals he wanted to drive across America and drive across Australia, and completely different and much more interesting and exciting than I'm jumping out of bed to be more tidy. I just can't see anyone really doing that. Certainly he wasn't the sort of guy that was going to be doing that for sure. So make your goals interesting and exciting within the context of the business. But interestingly, a goal should be something that you need to work towards. So it's something that you can't already do straight away. So if you can do it straight away, then that's kind of just something on your to-do list. Really, you're looking at something that's a little bit further away. So I do a little bit of running, and if I had to run a marathon, that would be a goal. I'm not saying I'm going to have that as a goal, but it would be a goal. Plus, I can't go out and run a marathon this evening. It's just too far. Whereas something, if you said, "Oh, your goal is to run 5K," I could probably do that, no problem at all. So just have that bit of stretch in your goals. So there should be, in the goal there, the quantity of work that's involved. So you're looking at what kind of quantity of work are you looking at? When are you going to be doing these things by? So it could be, if we're carrying on with the running analogy, really, the quantity would be the number of kilometers or miles that you're going to be running, and time factor. How long are you going to be doing that over? Is it going to be every day, every week, every month? How long is that going to be working from? And then the quality of the work is, how are you going to measure that? So are you going to put a stopwatch on it? Are you going to be working on your scores and bringing your time down? Certainly that might be something you're looking to do. So make sure you get some involvement and engagement in these goals. So looking at those, and hopefully that makes sense to have some smarty goals rather than just smart goals. And next point, moving on to rule number 10. So really we want to be maximizing the technology that you're using really there. So you're looking at the technology. So use the technology at your disposal. So we want to make sure that we've got the right tools for the right job. So if you've got the video and recorded message, make sure you've got a nice background and people can see and the video's not moving around. We want some good communication and the tech there so that you can send emails. You have got a good internet connection, so the webcam and video chat works, text messaging, telephone calls. So make sure the tech works. I know my sister-in-law works for a local council. I shouldn't mention any names, but she works there, and their tech is just terrible. She's always moaning and groaning about the bringing a laptop home. She's got working from home, and it's just crashing all the time. She can't get onto the server, and it must be so frustrating that people are just not getting the work done. So certainly, I know that working with technology companies, they're ones that are really busy at the moment, making sure that everyone's technology at home works. So they're getting those things in place and getting them up and running and working correctly. So make sure your technology works for you. So examine. So rule 11 there, we're looking at have a look at yourself. So define your beliefs. How do you lead? Good leaders require relatively healthy self-image. So really, what are you doing to keep yourself healthy and making yourself fit for leadership, really? And again, things that I would be looking at encouraging you to do really would be, make sure you take plenty of exercise. That could be walking, swimming, cycling, all sorts of things. So get some exercise. You need to be drinking lots of water and keeping yourself hydrated. You need to be getting to sleep well, so get enough sleep. You also need to be having that balance, having a good balance between work and home life. And you probably need to be get that wellness really of having that balance and being present. Certainly something that I've been encouraging my clients to do really is make sure you're present in the now. We can learn from the past and we can look forward to the future, but really focus on being present. So we want to be present in the now. Certainly make that a strategy if you can. So be present at all times, and looking at the sort of self-talk, if you like. So a few warning signs to watch out for if you are talking to yourself. So that's in your head. What are you saying? Oh, you're an idiot. That's the worst idea. They couldn't possibly. I didn't think they were thinking this, or I can't do this. I'm a fraud. I'll be exposed. So be aware of those really. So you want to be looking at checking assumptions, check some positive feedback, get some positive feedback, and get some help from others. So this kind of slide there is your sort of self-belief and self-talk really. You're looking at another song springs to mind, look in the mirror. So I'm the Michael Jackson song, I'm starting with a man in the mirror. Look in the mirror, look at yourself first and foremost, and is that how are you coming across? How are you looking to be? So make sure you look at you take that make that change if you need to. And certainly Number 12, rule 12, accept that you can't do it all. So you do need to find a balance between being responsible to your organization or your business, if you're the business owner, and taking care of yourself. So we did mention through a few things there. So diet, water, exercise, sleep, mindfulness, they're key areas that you can take care of yourself and be responsible. But look at your organization's processes and workflows. So certainly the process and systems will really help people work through this, through any situation really. So we're looking at building systems and processes and workflows into an organization at all parts across the business. So be that whether it's in marketing, sales, operations, finance, there should be certain processes and systems in place so that if there's anything that goes astray and goes wrong or doesn't work as well, it's the system and the process that's at fault. You're not then looking at blaming the actual individual. So a great tip would be to ask the people that are actually doing the work for you, get them to come up with their rules of the game and how do these processes work on in practicality. There's certainly people as they go further up the organisation, they're getting further and further away from the actual tasks that are being completed, and the people that are completing the tasks will know the easiest and simplest ways of doing a task and doing it well. So get those guys to get those processes documented out, and then once you've got their processes written out and they work, look then to automate, so that you're looking then to automate your team's processes and systems, so that will improve the efficiency of the business as a whole, so that your team are then looking at working on a happy team are then looking at the processes and systems, and if things are going wrong, they're the things that are getting changed as a first port of call. And then if the attitude and the competence aren't coming up to the right level, then of course that needs to be a change for the person perhaps, and perhaps they need to look to move elsewhere for their work. So make sure you're looking at those your organization's processes and workflows, and identify for yourself identify areas where the team could handle some of the activities you do, because lo and behold, I know most men are probably major culprits of it. They've got that kind of superhero mentality that no one in the world can possibly do this as well as I can. Their pants are on the outside like Superman, and they're busy thinking that only they can do these certain things. Well, of course, that's not true. I believe everyone can be trained up to a level of competence and get those things done. So make sure you identify the areas where your team can perhaps handle some things that you already do. And then you can start moving and working and improving the business in other areas. So delegate effectively and successfully. So delegate rather than abdicate. So delegate means that you've given people a clear outline of where you're heading and where you're going, what you need to actually do, and a great little tool on that one really of delegating out. If a task is going to take 10 hours, you probably want to set the task at hour 1, but then review the task at hour 2. So if you've delegated out, review the task and just check in with that person that you've delegated that task to at hour 2. And then you can just check to see if you're going off course. So if you leave it to the end, the 10th hour, they could be considerably off course. So a great little tip would be to check in at number 1. So hour 1 is set the task. Hour 2, you check in. Hour 6 hours later, so an hour 8, you check back in. How are you getting on? Are you nearly completed? So again, it should be, do you need more resource and delegate? Do you need more help on that? And then the 10th hour, the project should be completed. So that's a kind of rough guide really. So hour 1, hour 2, hour 8, hour 10, that would be a great little tool perhaps to use for delegating successfully. And if you're not delegating successfully, you're probably going to end up as the business owner in this hole here, with the human resources manager and all the other managers sitting around watching what you're up to, and you're the superhero that's getting everything done. And obviously, that's probably not where you want to be. So as I've said, really, what I'd like you to do now is list out, perhaps take a look at your notes and list sort of 3 to 5 ideas that you could potentially take action on today. So maybe writing them down, and that would be a good clue as to, well, what am I going to be doing and working on over the next days, weeks, months. But there's certain things that maybe you think, oh, okay, I might be able to take that on board. And if you can jot that down, that would be great. And then we're going to look at the questions in the chat box. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, myself, we're very happy to do a separate strategy session over a virtual coffee, and we can follow that up after the webinar. And there will be a little ebook, a little e-learner, the long distance leader. So we'll make sure that goes out to everyone. So I think that is all. Well, I know that is my last slide. So Sarah, would you like to?
I'm back. Thank you, Steve.
I'm back in the room.
Yeah, sure. I've got a couple of questions that have come through anyway, but if anyone else has got any other questions they'd like to ask Steve or me, just pop them in the Q&A or the chat, and I'll bring those up as well.
Okay.
One question that's come through, Steve, is somebody said, have you got any specific tips on how to lead to pick up morale? So I'm presuming that person's struggling with a bit of team morale at the moment with everything that's going on. So any top tips on how to lead to pick up team morale?
Yeah, to build morale. I think a great one really would be to be mindful of what you can do and rather than what you can't do. So it would be a great thing to I think now is a great time to not look at the news. Almost, if the news is not going to be good, it never is, ever. So don't sort of say, oh well, it's different in this day and age. It's not. It's never been the same. So if it's anything that's drastically happens in the news, you will hear about it anyway, for sure. So try and perhaps take that out of your conversations really, but focus on what you can do. So I think that would be a great one to work out. Well, and it can just be as simple as, well, can I pick up the phone and ring some more business owners? Can I send a letter out to someone? Can I send an email to someone? What can I do rather than what I can't do? So hopefully that can go to there. And a great one really to follow on from there, Sarah, is to celebrate some wins. So and wins, and we're terrible in this country. I do a growth club, which is a planning session for my clients, and every month we've been running it monthly, and we do a sort of little session where we ask for wins. Well, what wins were there, business and personal, and then I always ask, well, how did you celebrate? And it's remarkable that we just don't celebrate really. It will be, oh yeah, I've got a new client, little fist pump, and that's about it. And you think, well, is that it? And you really want to be programming your mind to look at, if it gets, it's like a bit like a dog really, or a cat. If you get rewarded, you're likely to do it again. So if it's like getting that pat on the back, everyone loves a pat on the back really. So I think that would be my top tips for morale really, would be, certainly focus on what you can do, and be very mindful of the wins really. And you'll have to tailor it down. I've got through to this person, and it's all relative, isn't it? So it's got to be a win. Someone's got to come up with a win. You could even do a gratitude diary. So certainly there's a thing there, and say, well, actually, I'm grateful of one or two things on a daily basis. Try a gratitude daily, we've got a lot to be grateful for, really, in our country, that's for sure. So you could do that. So hopefully that answers.
That's great. Thank you, Steve.
Answers the question there.
Another one is, how often would you revisit goals? Like if you said on one of your slides about measuring a goal, they said, how often would you revisit the goals you've set? Yeah,
I think a good one really would be we kind of had goals are set for the business in sort of 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, so you can come back. We kind of tend to do 90 days, so setting goals out to 90 days. But certainly over the pandemic period, really, we've been doing on a monthly basis. So I'd perhaps set the goals, and it depends on, well, the goal is I need to do this by such and such a time. Well, at the end of that time, that's when you're going to redo you're going to revisit that goal. So if you say, well, yeah, by the end of this week, I would have done X, Y, and Z. Well, at the end of the week, that's the time to review the goal. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then one other question that's come through is, what, in your opinion, do you think are some good motivators for employees?
Ooh, yeah, motivators. I think the thing that I've found over time, really, it's that inclusion and engagement, really. I think everyone might move straight away, think, oh, money, give them money, more money. Well, a certain amount of money is great. People do want money, and I can't, that is the elephant in the room to a lot of for a lot of people, and it could well be that they want more money, and that gets them striving for more money or more rewards. So that might be one thing. But really, I suppose once you've taken that, that's only a sort of blunt-edged sword after a while, because you may not be able to give more money. But certainly on the motivation front, if people feel that they're doing meaningful and worthwhile work, I think that's a great thing to think on, really. So is this meaningful and worthwhile? And I always talk about this because it's a classic thing. Apparently, when President Kennedy in America did a visit to the space center, NASA Space Center, when they're on the race to get men to get with the Russians to get a man on the moon, and the famous sort of phrase is he saw a guy in a NASA that, sweeping up an area, and he turned around and said, "Well, what are you up to, young man?" And the guy said, "Oh, I'm helping to put a man on the moon." And we might think, really, he's sweeping up the floor? And then you kind of go, if you can flip it and go, well, actually, yeah, because if that floor is untidy and one of our highly trained astronauts goes walking across that floor, slips on a banana skin, breaks his leg, he's not going to go into the spaceship anymore. So it really scuppers the thing. So why is it meaningful and worthwhile to actually keep the floor tidy? Well, yeah, it keeps everyone safe and creates a great impression, really. So hopefully that's probably sort of a classic thing, and it always brings a laugh. Yeah, what are you doing? I'm sweeping up. Well, that might be seen. You do need to have what's the front of your I've had a case with one of my clients years back, and it is forever telling people to sweep up the front of their premises, because it's just a bad impression. First impressions count, don't they, really? And something as simple as that, but it's making sure it's meaningful and worthwhile. So why are we doing this then? That would be the thing to do, really, isn't it? So that hopefully that answers that one, really. Yeah. So it's engagement, involvement, isn't it, really? And if people like to feel, and as the leader, you don't have to take everyone's opinion. You don't have to, you make your own mind up. But it's nice as an employee to be asked. That's for sure.
I think to have a voice is really important. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you want to be known. Well, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
It just makes such a lot of sense, really, and that and people feel like they care. So I think certainly I experienced that with where I used to work. I think if you've got someone that doesn't involve you and doesn't include you, at first you think, oh, this is great, they must trust me to get on with this. But then the longer that goes on, the more that you feel that actually it backfires and says, well, this person just doesn't really care about me. And I think people want to feel like they're cared for. I don't mean that in a, it's not like a little baby being cared for. It's just a bit of kindness, really, isn't it? Just good practice. Good practice.
Okay, cool. Right. Thank you, everyone. Steve, thank you so much for hosting today. As I said, everyone, I will drop you an email later on today just with the ebook that Steve's talked about and his contact details if you wanted to reach out for him and follow up on that free strategy session. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you have a good afternoon, and I'm sure we'll see you at the next webinar. Take care. Bye-bye.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thanks, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your participation.